Muhammad Husayn Tabataba'i was born in the year 1902 to a family of renowned scholars.
He came from a family of knowledge and good deeds. His ancestors were scholars and mystics who are descendants of Prophet Muhammad from the Tabataba'i lineage. They were all active scholars. One of his grandparents, Mir Abdul Wahab, was one of the great scholars of Iran. He was killed by an Ottoman king in Istanbul, Turkey.
The late Sayyid Muhammad, his father, was a scholar and a learned noble man. His wife was from the Yahyawi household. Some of them were merchants and others were employees. He tried to earn his livelihood only from agricultural and farming work. His farm is located in a village in Tabriz called Shadabad. It comprises a lot of gardens, farms, and water streams.
At the age of 5, my mother passed away, and at the age of 9, I lost my father. Because our income was limited, our guardian and the executor of my father's will couldn't change our living conditions. He placed my younger brother and I in the care of a servant and maidservant. Shortly after the death of our father, my brother and I were sent to primary school and eventually to secondary school.
In grade 7, their guardian, Sayyid Agha Qadi, took them out of regular school and enrolled them into the Taglibiya Islamic Seminary.
In the year 1918, Sayyid Muhammad Husayn Tabataba'i started Hawza studies, and this continued until 1925. During these 7 years, in the field of Arabic morphology, he studied books like Sarf Mir, Tasrif. In syntax, he studied Al-Awamil, Al-Unmudaj, Al-Samadiyya, Al-Suyuti, Al-Jami, Al-Mughni. In the field of rhetorics, he studied Al-Mutawwal and in jurisprudence, Sharh al-Lum'a and Al-Makasib, and in principles of jurisprudence, Al-Ma'alim, Al-Qawaneen, Al-Rasail, and Kifayat al-Usul. And in logic, he studied Al-Kubra, Al-Hashiyya, Sharh al-Shamsiyya, Sharh al-Isharat. And in theology, Kashf al-Murad. This concluded his major textbooks in the main areas of studies in the Hawza, other than philosophy and mysticism.
At the start of my studies, when I was reading grammar and syntax, I felt a lack of interest in continuing. This prevented me from understanding what I was studying. I spent 4 years this way. Suddenly, the divine favor reached me and changed me. I grew excited over my studies and became eager to learn all there was to learn and reach the highest levels of scholarship. Since that moment, and for the next 17 years, I never felt weary or discouraged in my studies or contemplations. I forgot all that is fair and foul in this world and saw the sweet and bitter aspects of this lower life as equal. I withdrew from social contact with any, except scholars. I cut back food and sleep and life's other necessities to the bare minimum, and devoted the rest of my time to learning. I would often spend the night in study until sunrise, especially in spring and summer. I would always study the next day's lesson in advance and would work hard to resolve any difficult questions ahead of class. When class started, I would already have a clear understanding of the teacher's topic. I never brought any questions to the teacher. Everyone has tasted the sweet and bitter aspects of their own life, which can be forgotten or not. I also have found myself in different circumstances, faced with all kind of hardships, especially since I have spent most of my life as an orphan or a foreigner, or far from friends, or without means, or in other difficulties. Yet I always sensed that an invisible hand has delivered me from every danger, and that a mysterious influence has guided me across 1,000 obstacles towards my lofty goals. Whether I am a thorn or a flower now, I only grow by that hand that nurtures me.
He got married when he was 19 years old. His guardian, Sayyid Hadi himself, married him to this lady, who was also from the family of Tabataba'i. She stayed with him until the end of her life. In the year 1925, he and his brother completed their foundational Hawza studies and prepared to move and continue their studies in the holy city of Najaf with their families. So he moved with his brother, his wife, and their son, who was 1 year old.
In 1925, I traveled to Najaf to attend classes given by the late Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Husayn Tabataba'i. I studied a course in advanced principles of jurisprudence, which took about 6 years to complete, as well as a course in advanced jurisprudence, which took about 4 years to complete. Also, I studied advanced jurisprudence for about 8 years under the late Ayatollah Nahini, and undertook a course in advanced studies under him. In addition to the late Ayatollah Abul Hassan Esfahani, I studied advanced science of narrators under the late Ayatollah Hojat Kukhamari. In the area of philosophy, I had the good fortune to be able to study under the most renowned philosopher of the time, the late Husayn Tabataba'i, for 6 years.
He studied philosophy under Husayn Tabataba'i, who was a prominent philosopher of his age. He was a pious, devout, and ascetic man, and used to teach at Najaf in Tabataba'i school.
Our memories are memories of knowledge and philosophy. There were topics other than philosophy. I studied jurisprudence, and I studied principles of jurisprudence. In mathematics, I studied from the best teacher, in my opinion. He was the best math teacher. I studied under him in Najaf.
He himself used to say that, when I first went to study in Najaf, I prayed to God to open up my heart. I requested, God, that you yourself take my hand and make me successful so that I can maximally benefit in the pursuit of knowledge in the seminary. He said that in one of the moments that I was contemplating this very desire. I met someone who I felt was one of the greatest scholars.
When he said, "my teacher," period, everyone knew that he meant Ayatollah Qadi. The special character of Tabataba'i, his spiritual, mystical character, was actually shaped by his teacher, Ayatollah Qadi.
His wife, my mother, played a great role for him in his life. She pursued her self-actualization through the success of her husband. Throughout her life, she had unwavering faith in her husband. She patiently withstood all the calamities that befell her family. Several of her children died before the age of 2. A mother suffers greatly for the loss of one child. She lost 1, 2, 3, 4 children. In general, it is very difficult for a mother to lose her children. Generally, the conditions in Najaf were difficult for them. During the time Reza Shah was ruling Iran, he prohibited transferring money outside the country, so he didn't allow for money to reach those in Najaf. My father told me that despite sending many letters, he didn't receive any money. We had lots of expenses. He was taking care of his wife, myself as I was a child, and his brother who was under his guardianship. Every day the expenses were there, but we didn't have access to any money. We had no choice but to borrow money from friends and acquaintances or get groceries in debt. Slowly and slowly the debts grew, and we couldn't borrow more nor buy in debt. So our financial situation got worse. So he started selling our belongings, gradually one after another to meet the expenses. He wrote more letters, but no answer received. He kept selling all the home belongings, including sleeping mats, blankets, rugs, kitchenware, books, and even his textbooks, and any extra clothing. It continued like this until nothing was left. In February 1935, everything was sold and the house became empty except for a mat in the middle of the room. But yet again, the money runs out and we become needy. My father said once that I felt extremely confined by my problems. So I went to the shrine, and after reciting, I said, "Oh, grandfather, is this how you treat me?" But as soon as I said those words, I regretted them. They were contrary to trust in God, but unfortunately they came out of my mouth. He said I was very remorseful and repentant at these words, so I went home, which was close to the shrine, and saw that no one was there. At this time, an older man, without knocking and without me unlocking it, opened the door and greeted me and introduced himself as Shah Hussein Wali. My father paused here and told me. At the time, Shah Hussein Wali was a known Shia mystic living in Tabriz, and the one who came to me was coming in his spiritual image. This man said, "In these 17 years, when has God ever left you alone?" My father told me, in any case, some money finally reached us and we paid all our debts. And he told his wife, "We cannot stay in Najaf. Get ready to move back to Tabriz." We didn't even have belongings to worry about, so the next day, we said our goodbyes and set off to Tabriz. When we arrived in Tabriz, we got a cart to take us home, and the last dime we had went to pay this driver. We literally had just exactly enough money to get home.
In the year 1935, due to financial difficulties, I was obliged to return to Tabriz, my birthplace.
We settled in a home in Tabriz. Then he went to check the farms and lands of his ancestors. It had not been properly taken care of since he was in Najaf. The gardens, farms, and wells were close to ruin. He begins running the land and farming with modern methods that were not customary to that time. For example, he created pathways within the gardens. I still remember him in the winters taking an umbrella out into the cold and made sure the land was being taken care of while workers are farming. He arranged it in such a way that if one stands in any location in the field, he could see the entire land.
I settled in Tabriz for 10 years, which I really count as a period of great loss. I was held back from studying, teachings, and reflection except rarely. I was held back by unavoidable involvements and social contacts entailed in making a living. I was deeply feeling spiritual barrenness